podemos decir, de nuestra unidad de inteligencia central de McCann. Suena un poco pretencioso, suena casi a la CIA, pero bueno, lo llamamos así, unidad de inteligencia de consumidor del grupo McCann a nivel global. Presentamos, si recordáis, son estudios además a nivel global, pero que tratamos casi siempre, no en todos los casos, pero en la mayoría de los casos tratamos de que haya un refuerzo local de toda esta investigación en la medida en que luego puede generar eso sesgos y contrastes de cómo se comporta el consumidor en español respecto al resto del mundo, ¿no? Que eso siempre es interesante. Si recordáis, presentamos en 2015 Truth About Global Brands. Presentamos el año pasado Truth About Millennials, que es un target muy trabajado, con un montón de fuentes, con un montón de información. Y este año presentamos Truth About Aging, que inicialmente se puede entender como un target adulto, referido sociodemográficamente a los que ya van o vamos teniendo una edad, pero en realidad no es tanto así como está enfocado el estudio. Es más bien un estudio de target actitudinal, es decir, cómo la gente se enfrenta al hecho no de envejecer. Ayer hablando con Rocío, que luego os la presentaré, de L'Oréal, coincidíamos los dos en que la palabra envejecimiento suena mal, ¿no? Tiene un tono peyorativo, negativo, que precisamente hay que revertirlo. Y mucho de esto es lo que vamos a comentar hoy al respecto del ir haciéndose mayor, que se trata de ir creciendo, de ir ganando en oportunidades y no solo ir envejeciendo, que insisto, suena francamente mal, ¿no? Os voy a contar solo una anécdota para introducir ya enseguida a Rodney y a su presentación. Mi padre me regaló, que era muy aficionado a los periódicos antiguos, me regaló 2 periódicos del norte de Castilla, que es desde mi pueblo, de Valladolid. Los que me conocéis sabéis que soy de Valladolid. Uno de 1902 y uno de 1905. El de 1902 era un chiste sin más, que decía: en aguas del río Pisuerga ha sido hallado el cadáver de un hombre muerto. No, menos mal que estaba muerto el cadáver. Pero en 1905 decía, debía ser peligroso caminar por el Pisuerga a principios de siglo, no sé por qué, decía: en aguas del río Pisuerga ha sido hallado el cadáver de un anciano de 55 años. Y no es que estuviera equivocado el periodista, es que en 1905, con 55 años, pues uno era un anciano. Yo tengo 52 y, hombre, a lo mejor discrepáis alguno, pero anciano, yo creo que no soy, ¿no? Quiero decir que también en lo sociodemográfico han cambiado mucho las cosas y ahora se envejece de otra manera. Pero va sobre todo no tanto de eso, sino de actitud, todo lo que vamos a ver a continuación. Y luego ya os presento los ponentes, porque el formato es el que hemos hecho en las otras 2 presentaciones de los otros Truth About. Una presentación de Rodney y posteriormente un pequeño debate de 3/4 de hora nomás con un anunciante, con una persona externa al mundo del marketing, que yo creo que eso enriquece mucho, y con una persona del grupo McCann. Rodney W.J. Collins, que es el Regional Director de Truth Central en Europa, nos va a contar el estudio.
Okay.
All yours.
Thanks. Buenos días. I'm going to present in English, although I could try in Spanish, but it would be painful for you. So I'd rather have you have a very pleasant morning. So this is a really big piece of research. I think if you've been at our previous Truth About research presentations, you might have noticed that our research scale grows each time we present a study. So this is 29 quantitative research markets. You see 12 of those markets in Europe alone. So we have a very rich data set in order to understand the differences and similarities across these markets. What I'm going to share with you today, of course, is just a top-line set of findings of data points from that research study. And if you're interested in learning more, you obviously have the opportunity to come and talk to us, and we will share. We also conducted really interesting qualitative research in 36 markets across the world. In this research, we brought together 3 individuals from 6 different decades. We interviewed those individuals in small groups, and then we brought all of the generations together to have a conversation around the topic of age and aging. Fascinating discussions, and I'm going to share some of the findings from that. As Gonzalo pointed out to you earlier, the research project, when we first began to think about it, was really to understand the truth about aging. And as we talked to people about this topic, everyone said, it's a study about old people. It's about seniors. And in fact, that's not what it is at all. We set out to understand the concept and the experience of age across the ages. So our research participants start at the age of 18, and they go up to 70 plus. And the first big thing that we understood from the research is that aging isn't just for the old. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that aging is a lot about youth. And living isn't just for the young, and this might not be a surprise for you, but I'm going to share some examples of why that's true. First of all, people who are in their 20s are the most likely to be thinking about death and to fear it. People who are in their 40s are most likely, people who are in their 30s are most likely to be thinking about aging and all of the worries and the risks of aging. And people in their 70s are the least likely to worry about the experience of aging. So already some counterintuitive findings from that data set. The second big truth is that age is a really complicated question today. On the one hand, if you compare age to something like gender, if you go to Facebook, you have 71 options to enter your gender choice. 71 options of gender options. So on the one hand, age is really simple, but on the other hand, it is incredibly difficult to predict anything just by that number. So let's just look at something like style. These are some examples of some style mavericks in the world. Here on the left, we have the Bonpon twins. They are Japanese, and daily they post images of themselves dressed in matching outfits. They have millions of followers. They're sort of celebrated around the world. Everyone knows Iris Apfel, right? Does everyone know that Iris Apfel is about to get a Barbie made after her? Mattel is building a Barbie for Iris. I mean, she's writing a book right now about success and style. An amazing woman. And then these young people who are just really defining success. Malala, as you know, is the youngest Nobel Peace Prize recipient ever. The youngest. And she just started classes at Oxford last week. And 5 years ago, she was being threatened to be killed, right? So she's really this wonderful example of success. This young guy, he is an Irish chap. He started the company called Stripe. Is everyone familiar with Stripe? It's a payment technology. It's a lot like Square. It allows small businesses to accept payments. So a really innovative, disruptive piece of technology. But he's the world's youngest billionaire. Yeah? So success defined at the young age of 26. And then health. Okay, these people are going to make you all feel terrible. This woman, Tao, she is an American. She's 93. She teaches 6 yoga classes a week. Right? How many of you do 6 yoga classes a week? I don't think so. And then this guy, you're probably all familiar with him, Manuel Alonso Domingo. The most amazing thing about this guy is he's 78 years old and he does 375 sit-ups every day. That to me is like, I think I've done like 375 sit-ups in the last 10 years. So pretty amazing. And then when it comes to attitudes, we asked people in our sample this question. Do you think there's a point at which you're too old to date, to casually date? And so when people came back to us and told us, no, you're never too old to casually date, people in their 20s, 60% of them agreed with that. People in their 50s, 70% agreed. And people in their 70s, 65% agreed. So there's a shared understanding that we can all go on dating until our final days on this planet. Amazing. That's really, really opportunistic. And then when it comes to behaviors, there's a lot of similarities that are pretty surprising. 20s and 70-year-olds tend to exercise, 70-year-olds exercise more than 20-year-olds. So that's one sort of busting of a stereotype. Playing online games per week, about the same amount of time of online gameplay. So another similarity across these 2 wildly different decades. And then when it comes to alcoholic beverages, people in their 70s drink more than people in their 20s. So there's a lot of surprises. But perhaps most surprising was when we asked people to rate how old they felt on a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being very old, 0 being not old at all, and sort of, everything in between. So people told us in their 20s that they felt like they're about a 4. Not too old. People in their 30s told us about a 5. People in their 40s told us about a 5. People in their 50s told us a 5. People in their 60s told us a 5. People in their 70s told us a 5. So nobody feels very old or very young. Although, what's really interesting is that Spaniards tend to feel older than the global average. A little bit older across all of those decades. But what I think really sums it up is this fabulous quote from this Italian man in one of our groups in Italy. "We are always guys. I've been through many different diseases, but I don't feel old yet. Okay, my body's not the same, but my mind is still the one I had when I was 50 or less." So this number is really unpredictable and something that people don't hold on to. But when you look at popular culture, you see stereotypes everywhere. So let's start with the young. They're reckless, they're partiers, they're dangerous, they're doing ridiculous things with one another, they really don't understand life, they're tech addicts, really terrible thing. And then when you look at older people, they're grumpy, they're gossiping, they're really hard to get along with, and they're always in your way, right? They're sort of always like bothering you. And then when you think about everybody in between, they're having midlife crises, they're getting divorced, they're buying expensive sports cars, just like nothing good about any of these ages. And in fact, when it comes to an understanding of this aging population, people tell us that no industry actually does it very well. So I think you look here and you sort of see that the beauty industry gets one of the highest marks, as does entertainment in Spain, which is a really unusual rating across the world. But the news media, not getting it right. Fashion industry, terrible job of understanding an aging population. And automobile companies really failing there as well. So lots of work to be done across all categories. So what we're proposing is a new marketing playbook when it comes to aging and age. And we're offering you 4 principles to sort of get that started. And I'm just going to dive into the first principle, which is to start young. And this is your first quiz question. I think anybody who's been at a presentation with me knows I like to test your knowledge. So let's see what you think about this. Which of the following age groups are most worried that they won't be remembered after they die? 20s. A couple of people. 30s. A lot of people. 40s. A couple of people. 50s, a couple. 60s, no one. 70s, one person, all right. In fact, it is 20-year-olds who are most likely to be worried about not being remembered after they die. And look at that number compared to the 70s. It's like 3 times the worry about being forgotten. And then when it comes to actually thinking about aging, our youngest population, people in their 20s and 30s, tend to agree that they're constantly thinking about aging much more than any other decade. So there is this constant fear and constant worry about aging. But what's really interesting is that, when we think about age, we often think about age in terms of milestones. So you think about your 16th, your quinceañera perhaps. You think about when you graduate from college. You think about when you get married. You think about retirement. Those are the standard traditional milestones. But what we've discovered from talking to people is when they think about age, they're having all of these age epiphanies on a sort of regular basis. And they're really coming from surprising places. So for instance, this woman in Italy in 20s realized she started thinking about aging when she was wearing high heels more often. Right? I really love that. And then I bet lots of people in this room have had that experience of scrolling down on a web page to find the year of your birth. Age epiphany. And then this fantastic quote from somebody in Spain who sort of was offered a seat on the metro but thought it was being offered to somebody else and was really embarrassed by this. They were offering it to me as somebody who was older. So there are lots of age epiphanies, these moments at which age becomes something that you think about. Really interesting is that young people tend to really believe that as you get older, you're going to stop having sex. They're the age bracket that is really most concerned about thinking that your intimate life is going to end, that you're never longer going to have anything exciting. So look at that, compare 7-year-olds, 14% think that that's true, versus 20-year-olds, almost 40%. So almost half of 20-year-olds think that that's true. Another way of thinking about this is that as we talk to people about the notion of getting older, younger people associate it with bad things, like not having sex any longer. Whereas older people tend to associate with positive things, like lying on a beach, listening to waves. Like, who doesn't want that experience, right? We all want to lie on the beach and listen to waves. But as you get older, you tend to associate it with positive things. So aging really is a problem for the young. In fact, in one of our groups in China, a young person told us that youth is a prison. It has all these obstacles and barriers and really locks you in. It's a real challenge. And then as we look in Spain, we sort of understand that these are rise and falls. There's these dips as you grow into your 20s and 30s. So you might be very attractive when you're 26. You're at your happiest at your 30. So if you're over 30, it's over. There's no more happiness left. 32, most difficult time of life. 33, really stressful, but productive. 35, the most fulfilling. And then at 40, life peaks, and it's all downhill from there. So really concerning. And then 63% of 20 to 30-year-olds really wish they had more support in leading a healthier life and aging well. So the truth of this is that young people are really thinking about aging in a way that's very different and very problematic in terms of the realities of aging more so than any other generation. And no one is talking to them about it. So what if we were to address these challenges by providing some age positive, some optimistic visions of what aging really is all about? And so I'm going to show you an example of a brand, a fashion brand, that I think provides an early effort to sort of provide an opportunity to think about age-positive relationships. And I'll just play this video. It's much longer. I've clipped it so you don't have to watch the whole thing. I just want to play a bit of it for you.
There are a lot of barriers for women everywhere in the world. I think I'm a little bit of an example. Diversity is important. That's how people come close to each other.
Every person should be having their own style that conveys